La la la. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start up my Sublime. JavaScript, what fun this is. I'm sure everybody's having as much fun as I did.
Oh, so overjoyed.
Thank you for the monochromatic. All right.
And if you need sarcasm, don't need to ask.
All right. Open this up via my web page. There we go. Okay, so what we did last week was we built this. If you can remember, all the way back last week, we had a 3-day weekend intervening, which usually wipes out most people's memories. Then with JavaScript, we were able to put some text into our little bubble. And the goal is then to be able to take all of the things that we put into our form and pop them into our bubble. All right. So let's go down here to our script. I put my script just before the end body tag. And one of the reasons I like to do mine at the end is because it'll build the page and then I can manipulate the objects once it's built. You can put your script up in the head. You could do it right there if you wanted to. This is one. Actually, you can do it throughout the body also if you wanted to generate dynamic content in there. But I have found I'm really liking putting my scripts down at the end because I don't have to worry if an HTML element has already populated the page, then I can go in and manipulate it afterwards. There have been occasions where I've done my JavaScript at the top and I'm referencing something that hasn't rendered yet. And it's going, I don't know what to do. I'm going, it's right here. I don't know what to do. It's the way it works. Okay, so variables. Those are the heroes of our programming language here. I'm using numbers. If you put something in quotes, then it becomes what's called a string. All right, so now this is no longer the number one. It is the character one. It's the letter one, if that works. I don't know. All right, it's text. It's no longer a number. It's a string. It's a string. Exactly. That is the proper terminology. It's a string. So when we do our dynamic story building, what we're going to do is we're going to put a bunch of strings together. So let's say, here's my string. You don't have to do this. Here's my string 1. Here's my string 2. And when I add A and B together, in theory, okay, what happened? Oh, it's because I didn't put C in here. There we go. It'll put those together. Right. No mysteries here. You guys covered that well in the chapter, I'm assuming, correct? Okay. The tricky piece then probably is this right here. All right. For those of you who are not familiar with it, that's how we get a hold of objects that we have named in our document. So if we look at this story bubble text, and we go up here to my div ID, that is my story bubble. The reason I gave it that ID was so that I could cram my text into it. Okay? All right, now.
So what's the purpose of the story bubble underneath that?
That's where our story is going to go. Once we write all of our stuff out here, I've written all my stuff, and I hit write story, it's going to populate that div with my story. And we're gonna put our story in there now. Okay? All right. So, let's see. Okay. If I want to get a hold of an object in here, what I need to do is I need to be able to, I have to name it, all right? And this is the code I use to name it. So my variable D is document. I have to start at the root. The root of my document is called document. And this is what's called a method. Anything with the quotes on it is a function or method. This belongs to this object. So in this object, I can do this. Grab the element, and then I have to name it. It would be just really, really nice if I could write story bubble text value spelled correctly, but it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I can't do it that way. I have to actually name the thing first, and I have to start at the root of that item, which is called an object. Huh? Yes, it does.
Document is the world.
Yeah.
And there's actually a document window that's rarely used. It automatically shortcuts. So you don't have to use it.
So to use a metaphor that we're probably all really familiar with, we could say, I'm going to pretend like we've got a real world object. Like, okay, we're going to say variable Amy. I'm going to name that variable. This is the Amy we all know. Okay. And also semicolon. Okay. Now, a real world application of this, not in code, will be something like Amy.shoes. She wears shoes. Where? All right. So we're starting off with our kind of root object there. And then shoe belongs to Amy, so we can follow that path. And where is an activity or a method that belongs to shoe. That's how this kind of works, if that makes sense. All right. Thank you. Like a clock. I'm right twice a day. No matter what. Okay, stop the clock, right?
So then what attribute would you pass to that again?
Well, okay, so let's say where had some qualification in it that I could use. I might say tie, or something that goes along with that. Right. Yeah, or whatever. I don't know. Polka dots. I don't care.
Hey, tie works because everybody has to tie their shoe.
Tie, or push the button if you're wearing those special Nikes, or I don't know.
Or just wrap the Velcro.
Whatever is applicable to that particular method. Right?
It's basically like you have like a long stick and you're just pointing and saying, this, and that.
Yes. Yeah.
The big thing to think about is every time you see a dot, it's an object, it's something inside of an object.
It's tied to that.
Yeah. You're following the path of belonging.
Yeah. Put the dot
Back to the
next
root.
Subcategory, dot next subcategory.
Yeah. Yeah, and so let's pretend then, if we wanted to contextualize this, Amy is in our class, and our class is on the campus in the United States. What I'm saying is, if you go far enough back, you would get to the world and the universe, or whatever. Big Bang, eventually get back to the origin.
That dot is
For
where
campus, I believe it would be university. That's jumping a few
yeah, you're
steps.
just throwing down a brick.
Yeah, Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like a this belongs to this, to this, to this. Eventually you get back to the root, and in the root of all of our documents, that's it right there.
The page, everything about it, everything it knows about the page, all the metadata.
Yes.
There's lots.
It's the computer equivalent of asking for directions.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. All right. So if I want to get a hold now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to comment this stuff out so it no longer affects anything at all. But you can reference it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to save this. I just want to double check and make sure I've got my buttons in here because I need to make sure. Okay, so I've got one button in here, but I also want a button at the bottom of this bubble. Okay. What's going to happen is when I hit write the story, it's going to take all the values in this, write a story, populate this, and then I want the form to disappear. So that's all going to happen when I click that one button. Bam! Like that. 2 or 3 actions, right? But I also want a way to get back to my form and rewrite my story. So I'm going to put a button in my story bubble that says rewrite my story, right? So I haven't done that yet. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I've got my code for it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my JavaScript up here. And actually I'm going to put it beneath my story bubble. Put it right there. I'm going to put it in p tags. You're going to want to do this. Put the input type equals button. I'm going to give it an ID so I can get a hold of it. This is going to be rewrite story button. And I'm going to give it a value, which is the text that goes in the button of rewrite the story. Again, I'm not using a submit button here because submit will try and submit the action. It'll try and submit that form using the script. But in this case, I want a button that will do what I tell it to do, which is what we're going to do in just a moment. Okay. So I'm going to activate my buttons. Now you would think that having a button on the page automatically does something for you. But all it does is go. That's all it does, right? So we have to give it... Absolutely, yeah. Feel free. All right, what I have to do is I have to give it instructions. And what I'm going to do is called creating a listener event. All right, so we have to name our thing. So it's going to be document. Right, that's the beginning of our file path. I lost my place. There we go. Get element by ID.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Yep, it's because you knew. We've done this before. The first button is the write story button. Okay, so I have just gotten a hold of this object. Okay, you'll notice there's no variable on the front of it. I did not say var whatever equals this. That's okay. The reason I don't have to do that is because I'm not going to reuse this. I'm naming it once. I only have to use it once. Yes?
Didn't you call that rewrite story button?
Nope. Our first one is write story button.
Oh, okay.
Our first button is write story button. I'm going to activate both of them here in just a second. Okay, now once I've gotten a hold of it, this object can use the can use the method add listener event. Add? I wrote it wrong. Okay. Add event listener. Okay, thank you. Apparently I have dyslexia of some kind. Click. All right, I'm telling it when I click it, do this. And I'm going to say action 1. Just put a placeholder in there. This last part I'm not going to describe to you. we would be going down the rabbit hole to do that. And I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to go there. Just don't want to. Okay. So, all right. So document. We've trailed it back to the very base level. Using a method to grab a hold of that particular object, which is the right story button. That's our first one. Then we are adding an event listener. And in the event listener, there are 3, what do we call those? Parameters. Thank you. 3 parameters that apply to event listener. The only way you would know this is because you'd studied it. Okay, so you don't have to think, oh, I didn't know that. Well, no, that's fine. We're telling it with the event listener, when we click it, we're going to do this thing, and this parameter remains false, which I'm not going to talk about. False is usually the best one for this. Usually. Not always. Yes? Yeah. It's button. Type equals button. Value. Oh, yeah. On that, the ID is rewrite story button.
One word, camel case.
Yeah. I really want to encourage you. If you don't understand this, that's fine. Just, I want you to be exposed to it so that when you do get to the JavaScript course, it won't make you crazy.
Yeah.
This is hard stuff.
It won't do what it did to me last year.
All right, this is not easy. I don't even want to pretend like, oh yeah, la la la, this is easy stuff. It's not easy stuff.
No, I actually...
What? Say that again?
I'm using classes. I'm putting methods on it.
Oh, you're going crazy with it?
I've actually used this as an example when people like start, oh, math is hard, or oh, this program that I'm trying to work is not working the way I do.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you have it difficult. Take a look at this.
Yes, and this is not even the hard stuff. I know. It's.
This is supposedly the easy stuff.
People can see now.
How crazy it gets. Okay, have we got all this done? Okay, we're good. Okay. So, now we have not defined what action 1 does. In order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and copy that. We have to declare what action 1 does. So we're going to say, I'm going to call this a function. A function is a reusable action. That's all that is, and we're going to call that action 1. This is the format that a function takes.
You can have the function after.
Yep. Won't matter.
Yeah, because it's not going to exit. Yeah, it's.
Well, because you're referring to it before you're defining it.
Yeah, it's okay. Or at least it should be.
Yeah. Something to understand with JavaScript is functions are going to be automatically hoisted to the top of the file.
Right. It has to do with how the browser reads it.
I believe you.
Yeah.
So in JavaScript,
It's a great question.
Function is priority.
Mm-hmm.
No matter
What it does is it goes through and it goes, it looks at the content and says, I need this first. I need this first. I need this first. Stupid programmers. I need this first, right? It grabs all the stuff that it needs and then puts it in order.
It'll be the same thing with variables and stuff.
Yeah.
If they are inside the function.
Unfortunately, it doesn't do that for everything. Like before when I was telling you, if I put my code, my script up at the top, sometimes some of the HTML document elements had not loaded it by that point. So it's creating problems for me.
And let's not forget the difference between global and local variables.
We're not going to go there. Say that again, Amber.
It's better to load the scripts at the bottom, right?
To do what?
Yeah,
To load them at the bottom.
Yes, load the scripts at the bottom.
Yeah.
That is, I think that is becoming standard practice now, and there's a good reason for it.
There's two reasons. That way, like you said, all of the documents are reloaded, and if you put it in the head, it has to load that before it loads your page. So it slows up.
Yes. There you go. Thank you for that. And that is important, right?
Then you don't normally have that issue.
Yes, exactly. There's
It's in order it finds.
if they didn't also mention in the text, this is important. Sometimes users turn off JavaScript. You have to understand. You don't necessarily want to build pages that are dependent upon JavaScript unless you notify people this uses JavaScript. If you turn it off, it's not going to work very well.
Use a no script.
Okay, so let's just say in our function we're gonna say alert. This is kind of how I start off all of my functions. Hey, it works. Make sure to put a semicolon after that. Semicolons go after almost every line of JavaScript, just as a good practice. Sometimes they work without. Sometimes the whole page fails without. It's kind of weird. So I would just say always put a semicolon at the end. It will help you. All right, go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and go back to our page and refresh it. Now, this is the one I put the event listener on. So if I click on that, you should get that. Hey, it works. Yay. Jason's.
The computer's thinking.
It shouldn't be thinking.
It should not be thinking, but it's thinking. There we go.
And that's the irony of technology.
Next, this one right here.
There we go.
Okay, so go back to your code.
Yeah, apparently the first save of the day always takes the longest. Get element by
Actually, I did some connects.
The G is lowercase.
Specific groups, so.
Okay. The write story button. Okay, that's perfect. And right, add an event listener. Click action one false. Function action one. That should work. Yeah, make sure you save it. It is. It's absolutely Vicky. Next one up. Right there. Attention to detail.
Hey, press write the story.
Huh.
Hey, it works.
Huh.
Sometimes those little victories are enough to keep you going when you're frustrated with your JavaScript.
Nope.
Huh.
Mike, would you look over your shoulder and see if you can find? I can't seem to see anything. All right. Anybody else have trouble with that? Anybody? Everybody got it? Amy, you got it? You feeling good about it now? Not gonna feel good. Hate JavaScript. My first foray into JavaScript was on free online tutorials. Right, that's how I learned JavaScript. Probably 2002, 2003. It's really different.
Ah,
The problem is that everybody does their own thing just a little bit different.
Yes.
That's a little bit different.
Right.
And so I saw a lot of people used to use it.
Yeah.
That didn't mean I knew how to use it.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. It's not. This is just not easy. Frustratingly, I would write my code. It would fail. I would pick through it, character by character. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. I would rewrite it, and it would work. And I would literally compare my old work with my new work. I couldn't find the differences. One worked and one didn't. It just made me crazy. That's where I lost most of my hair. Just pulling it out.
I remember in JavaScript there was one assignment that I could not figure out what the issue is. You took a look at it and you couldn't find it. The last day to get it turned in. Have you helping me out that last day? And then I see the issue. It had to be a semicolon.
Semicolon. Yeah, I remember that. Right there, right? It was, if you put a colon in there, that means something different to the browser. So it's going to mess up. Okay, so let's go ahead and, did you get it figured out?
Yeah.
Nice. What was it?
The ID didn't match your ID.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be efficient. I'm going to copy paste those lines. All right. Here, basically, we're going to lather, rinse, repeat, except I want to use the ID of my second button. So that's the rewrite story button. Put that in there. I'm going to leave click the same, but I want to make this action 2 and rename my second action action 2.
Next step is done.
Yes. Hey, and I'm going to go ahead and say this also works. Just so I know, that's a different function. So if I go, hey, this works, and this also works, I know that both functions fired. Okay. Did that work, Amy? Got it. All right. Emery, did that work? Okay. To me, JavaScript is a little bit like gambling. When it works, it's so thrilling. Most of the time, you're just going, it's not good. It's not working. I can't get it to work. It's like throwing quarters into the machine. I'm not for gambling either, but to me, it's those wins that keep me going, right? Those little wins. Oh, that was thrilling. I got it to go.
No, it's like throwing a coin into the fountain, and the success is the coin flying back into your pocket.
Right, just the one. Okay, so naming your actions, your functions, action 1 and action 2 is pretty terrible, because if you have to go back and reread your script, it's not descriptive, right? You think, what on earth does this function do? So I'm going to rename my action, and I'm going to say, write the story. And then I'm going to copy that and make it my function name right there. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say rewrite the story. I'm going to replace action 2 there. Okay, so that reads a little nicer. And readability when you're coding makes a huge difference. Let's just make sure everything works still. We didn't mess anything up. Dude. Okay. And then I hit OK. There we go. Okay. Question on?
No, I was just going to say that if you think that there are any errors on your website, you just go to press F12, go to console.
Console. All right, I'm going to show you the long way.
That's also where you go to see your console log.
Yes. So if you go up to the upper right-hand corner, what he's talking about is the more tools. Go down here to Developer Tools. If you hit F12, it does the same thing, and that's the faster way to do it. If you go to console, it would tell you if you had any errors on the page. It's amazing to me, if you open up the console on a lot of, I mean, even the Walla Walla Community College website, Amazon, any of the big websites, they have all kinds of errors and they still work. Some errors are better than others. You know, hopefully you get rid of as many as you can. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
It's the cheap way to do diagnostics.
Right. Yeah, it is.
The thing's just, why is it not working instead of doing a bunch of alerts, which is not nice when it's in a loop, and and then you have to click on OK on console log works much better because you go in there and look at it and go, that's wrong.
Yeah, last forum I went to see how to do something. Somebody had asked this same question on this JavaScript forum, and he had put an alert in there to find if no, it wasn't. That wasn't the problem. You know how horrible people are on the internet. All right, so the first person to answer the question was, first of all, I don't want to answer your question. I want to tell you what a dope you are for using alert. Use console.log. You know, I'm like, I mean, please, can we just have a little bit of etiquette?
A little civility on the internet.
There is actually a lot of browsers, the more secure ones, they block alerts automatically. That's why it's not even
Oh,
use it anymore.
gotcha.
It just blocks them because that was something that.
It was so annoying.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're handy if you want to just do one thing, and if you know, it's better to do console.log.
And before browsers had built-in console logging, it was your own option.
Gotcha.
But now,
Right.
they
But all the browsers have it. Yeah, it's better to use it. I just wanted to show you in case you want to use it. It's fine. Okay, so we need to move on because we don't have much time here. So what happens when we hit the rewrite story button is we want to get a hold of all of those form elements, right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete the hey, it works. And I'm going to write, what's the first thing I'm going to write if I want to get a hold of an ID? What is it? Document. Document. Dot. Get element by ID. Right? And then my first object up here, my first form item is name1. Okay, so I'm going to say name1. Lost my place. Sorry, guys. Do 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 do. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now what I want is I want to get the value of that form element. So I'm going to put in here value. Okay, that allows me to get a hold of that. Okay. Now, for fun, let's go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, on the very first part, is I'm going to say console.log. We'll do this the right way. And I'm going to put this whole thing in parentheses. What that means is everything that's going in from here will go into the console.log. Okay, so how this is going to work is, I'll go back to here, I'll refresh the page, nothing should happen. But if I put in here Billy Bob, and I hit write story, nothing will happen. It's because I didn't have console open. All right, F12, there it is right there, Billy Bob. If I change it to Billy Joe, hit write story, there we go. So that's console log. This is a good way to troubleshoot your work. Okay. We are going to be reusing, or I should say, we're going to be calling these items to make our story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of console, and I want to name a variable. Let's say I say, all right, name 1. We'll just keep it consistent and put equals. Now I have a variable with that value. And it is a local variable, right? Because it's within a function. Okay, it only exists while the function is running. Exactly.
So if you try to call it outside of the function, it's not going to work.
Correct. That's correct. You can send them places.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt that there's
You
a
can
way.
have a variable
Yeah,
that
no
calls
doubt.
a function and then return that variable.
Yeah, you can pass those values
Okay, there's
to and
no-
fro.
There's no direct way. You gotta have to work around it.
Yeah, there are workarounds.
Questions about this? Does everybody understand what we just did here? Okay. All right.
I don't want to speak for everyone.
I want to make sure that we understand this because we're going to do this a bunch of times. Okay? So I'm going to copy, paste, paste, paste. Whoops, not like that, I'm not. Paste, 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 paste. How many did we have? 17? 11? Thank you. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Get rid of that one. Okay. So now I'm going to rename these according to the actual IDs. Okay? So these match the IDs that we made for our form elements. Just so you're all aware of that. Okay? Noun. Noun. Inhuman. Oops. Come on, you. I want the whole thing. Inhuman body parts. Exclamation.
I found an error in mine.
Did you?
Yeah, so if you're running off that one, you have to go right into it.
Okay.
It's into something big too.
Oh,
Both the form and the ID. I copied and pasted or something big one.
gotcha. Okay. Number 1. Something big 1. Something big 2. So I'm just going to double check my IDs. Is that what I've got to do, Bradley?
Yeah, just up above.
Yeah.
You're doing the JavaScript in HTML file should be in the graph.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It should.
You won't do it if you're trying to do it from an external file.
Right. That's what you're doing.
Not that hard, actually.
Okay, so I'm just going to double check my something big up here. Just make sure something. Oh, I see. So I've got 2 IDs of the same. Gotcha. So this should be something big 1, something big 2. Okay. Got it. All right. I'm going to leave that up for a minute so you guys can finish that up. Say it again.
It should have been angry IQ.
I'm too big. I'm too scary for it. That's the thing.
It doesn't care.
It's like, you know what? I'm not going to fight over this. It should. Sometimes things don't work. Does everybody understand what we just did here? We just got all of those form values so that we can rename, or so that we can use the actual content. Exactly. Right. Okay. Is everybody done with this part? Nobody's not done?
Also,
Does that even work?
The exclamation,
Yes.
I have ID is exclamation 1, but my form is exclamation.
Okay, make sure they match.
Right, no, I'm talking about yours.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's exclamation.
No, up at the top.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay, exclamation. Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, that would have failed. I don't know what to do.
It had an exclamation on the line.
Okay.
When I actually started typing in those names, it remembered the
In Notepad, that's how I caught it right now, because I typed EXC, and it popped up exclamation 1. And I'm like, I never use exclamation 1. So I had to go through that.
Yeah. That's handy. That's nice. Okay, so, all right, so I'm going to go back here. I just want to show you. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to amend this header up here. And it's going to say story time with such and such monster. Okay? That's the very first thing that we're going to do. Now, I also want to put a caveat in here, and I'll get to it in just a second. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say document dot get element by ID. Now I want to get a hold of that header text. Now it should be called header text. I'm just going to, just want to double check. Double check, where are you here? Header text. Yep. Header text. Now this is how we change it. And before everybody screams who knows better, I'm going to use the inner HTML. This is not the correct way to do it. Just want you to know. But it is more convenient. Okay? There is a slight security risk in using inner HTML. But because we're not going to be letting our little monster out of its box, we can use it. It's perfectly safe. Okay? Don't put this out on the web if you are collecting user data. That's the thing.
Yeah. Because they can put whole new scripts, their own web page in there, and it will take over.
It'll do. Yep, exactly. So we don't use inner HTML when collecting user data. Okay. All right. So we're going to say story time with. Make sure there's a space after with. And we want to say, all right, name 1. That's the first piece of information we collected. With name 1 plus space monster. And then after the quote, put a semicolon on it. So can anybody tell me what we're doing here? Say it again. Concatenating. Yep, you're putting strings together. Exactly. Is there another? Huh?
Putting strings and variables together. Yeah. There's another way you can do it too.
So that's the term, is concatenating. But it's not mathematical, but it has the same form. Anytime you want to put strings together, you use plus. Okay. If you had two variables here that were numbers, it would add them together. So it's kind of funny. You use the same notation for both strings and numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Go here and refresh the page. I'm going to write in here Billy Bob, write the story. And this is what I should get right at the very top. Story time with Billy Bob Monster. And we are out of time. My gosh, it goes so fast. Yeah.